Alright, today's project, we're getting on this gate right here. Customer has a pool and they need this gate put up. And what we got to do is we got to make a frame of 3x3 square tubing around it and change the hinges on this thing. We've got old farm gate style hinges. We're going to cut these off, put some nice ball bearing hinges on it, and get it framed up with some 1/4 inch 5.5 by 5.5 base plates and a cross piece connecting them, and she ought to be fixed up and ready to go. Let's get into it. Alright, so I've laid this out, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but we're going to have our 3-inch coming. It's be offset, it won't be center. 3 inch is going to be hugging this side, and we've got our 1/2 inch holes marked, and we made sure to leave enough room where we can get a socket on there and not have any trouble. So let's get these holes drilled and get these base plates ready to go on. Alright, excuse my junk under the table. We got our 2 7-foot verticals here. I got 1 foot tacked. So basically, you can see I've got it laid out here. We're going 1/2 inch hole bolts, but I did 9/16 just to give them a little wiggle room. Could have gone 5/8, but so we got that all set up, and I'm getting ready to line this one up and tack it in place, and then we have to tack the caps on the ends, and we're going to start working on the hinges. So let me show you how we get this foot lined up on here. Alright, so the way I line these up, I stretch my marks out a little past the square where I can see them. So I'm going to take my magnets, I'll put one left and right, kind of keeps it from wanting to pivot around. Line up the bottom a little close and bring it up, and then I use a little tapping hammer to get everything kind of lined up. Now, making sure we align like the other one, kind of trying to match them up. Alright, she's ready to tack in place. While I got it, just so everything will stay square. Put one tack on the other side. And that's on there, ready to be welded up. So I'm going to tack the caps on next, and then we will finish weld all of this, start working on the hinges. Alright, so we got the feet welded on. Now we got some squares cut out just a little bit smaller than these holes so we can get a good drop on them. Alright, so we're going to tack those in place and weld those up. And on the feet, just being that this is outside, even though we're capping these posts, I left a little gap to accommodate two things. One was the bolt hole, and two was to give us a weep hole in case some water gets in there. The bolt hole because it was kind of close and get a socket on it, and but to leave a weep hole in case it sweats, any moisture can get out. So let's get these tacked on. All right, so we're at the top right now. We're going to weld some caps. So we got our corners beveled, and we got them cut just a little thin, so give us a good spot to put a bead, and we're going to weld those on. I just did them with my fingers because I can feel the spacing on them, kind of get them all even. So I'm going to get them slid over where I can get a good spot to weld up on them. Alright, so this is the bottom of the gate right here. I got the old hinges off. I still got a few little holes I'm going to fill from cutting it off. And we got these ball bearing hinges, which are pretty neat. You drop the ball bearing in, and then it's a greasable, hingeable pivot right there that rides on the ball, so you don't have to worry about anything rubbing its way loose or getting in a bind. So we're going to put it with this one with the grease zerk up, the other one with the grease zerk down, because it can be a permanent install that's not removable. I'm going to get rid of that ball bearing. And so we got it spotted. We got space here, and we have these tension springs which will anchor. Oh, I got to check that out. Let me see. Yep, that's going to be in the way. We're going to have to move this. I had this pulled out of the way and forgot about it. But it anchors on the opposite side. And this is going to hit, so we're going to have to move that. Alright, let's loosen this up. Alright, I'm going to have to sand some of this. So let's swap the camera around. Alright. Keep forgetting I gotta turn the tunes down so YouTube doesn't get their panties in a bunch. Alright, so we talked about putting this grease zerk facing up. And I'm gonna temporarily clamp this right here. And what I'm trying to do is make sure this is gonna give us plenty enough clearance to get a grease gun in. So we're gonna clamp it right here. That's actually gonna be the other way, but and should be able to get it in. May even go down all the way to the bottom. But you gotta check all of that before you tack weld everything in, and then the fun begins as you try and unscrew the situation. So we're gonna go down a little bit. We're probably gonna go down even with this cross piece right here, and that'll give us another 1/2 inch. That should be fine. And then we'll figure out where we're gonna put the top one. And you got to be careful because I'm gonna weld these. I'm gonna weld this one to the gate, and we can weld the other one to the gate, and we can only weld one to the 3x3, and then we're gonna have to mock it up and finish weld the other one because they're gonna be opposing each other, so you can't lift it off the hinges. All right, we just mocked up the bottom one. We're gonna mock up this top one. I already kind of marked it. So we had 4.5 inches of clearance for the grease zerk, and since this grease zerk is gonna be looking down, we double check here, and I've got actually 5.5, so we're good. And again, don't weld it up because you have the gates that you can hang and remove, but this is gonna be a permanent install. You'll have to cut it off. So, you know, they won't be able to be lifted off. They're opposing each other. So I'm going to wire wheel this area so that can be welded, and then we'll probably tack these down. We can hit them with a little paint, and then we'll start tacking these sides on 3x3. So we got the top hinge tacked in and the bottom hinge tacked in. So we're trying to figure out what we got to do. So the bottom of the gate has to be 4 inches off the concrete, and this should be 4 inches from the bottom of the gate. That's 3 3/4. So that's going to be pretty damn close. Alright, we're going to have the space of the ball bearing, so that's going to put us right at 4, and then 8 for the bottom to give us 4 inches on there. So the way I figured that, get over here. Alright, so we have 4 inches from the bottom is gate bottom, and then 8 inches from the bottom to the hinge, and we put a square on it, and then we marked an inch in so that we got some lines to line it up on and clamped it. So we're going to tack this in place and then set it up. We got all the we got 3 hinges. This one on the vertical, and the top and bottom on the gate. So we're going to weld those up. Then we can take the vertical and stick it in place and line up the last hinge and tack it in place. I'm going to go ahead and do that on time lapse, just so y'all don't have to sit there and watch me weld and cuss. Alright, so I laid this other vertical down to spot a few things. So we made is 4 1/4 from the bottom, and that matches the other side, so we got it laid down right. I had this piece here which was going to make the door latch, and they had buffed it down a little skinny right there, so we took it down and made it match the actual width of the lock and marked it out to center it, and we're going to weld that in, and then we can flip it and slide it in and get a better mark on it. And then we have to get a good measurement and cut a cross piece there and weld that in, and then this will be pretty much done. So let me get this welded on, and then we can mock it up and see what we can get done. So it's the next day, and here we are. We got our vertical with the hinges on. We put our springs back on, which they will tighten up later on the job. And we got this one mocked up. It's just in place. And just so y'all can see, right in there, I used a little thin ruler to give me a shim to space the gate so it wouldn't rub. Got this butted up. I actually had to cut this off because I welded it centered, but the gate, as you can see, doesn't center in that, so I backed it up to here. So today we're gonna get our horizontal top piece going, and I have 2 pieces of angle that we're gonna clamp on the ends so that it'll just set in place and we can square everything up. All right, let's get in. All right, so what I like to do when I have something that's got to fit in the middle is to get some clamps, take a piece of angle, let it overhang, clamp them on there, and do the same thing on the other side. Let's see, I need a little space. If any of you guys have a good tip, you want to hit me up in the comment section, hit me up. I'm always looking for good, better ways to do things. A lot of times, you're just out here figuring it out on your own. All right, so we're gonna drop this and line it up with our marks. We're coming down 1 inch from the top to this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp it here, and that should clock the pivot on the hinges to where these will be, you know, oriented the same. And then I'm going to check it for square here. Same thing on this side. Once it's all clamped in, I'll double check my measurements on there so we're all square on the other end, and then we can tack it in place. And before I do that, I need to make sure these are in all the way. So let me get a strap and make sure that these are squeezed in. All right, so we got this thing strapped up. All this is to do is to keep everything pulled in tight. And check it again for square. So we're pretty square there. We're trued up where the 4x4s are not clocked. And after double checking our width measurements, I took a straight edge and clamped it, and that's going to help keep the 4x4s from moving. Plus it's going to maintain that width while we weld this side up so it doesn't pull. And then we're probably going to rig up an angle or something. We'll see how sturdy this is. We may have to rig up an angle right here to hold it until they get it where they're going to install it. All right, let's get this thing welded in. guys saw me cheating and flipping over to finish these couple of welds over here. I was doing some low highs, 70-18 rods, and I kind of swapped. The wire feed was acting stupid and the wind started to pick up, so I finished all of that with some low highs, and they like to lay flat, and I just wanted pretty welds without a fight, so I didn't bother to put the you know, try and weld upside down and sideways. I just kept flipping the damn thing over until I got the angles I needed. So that is our frame around the door, and I'm gonna let you guys go out with a little probably, I guess we'll do a little time lapse of some paint, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Hey, also guys, if any of you guys see any shortcuts, or any of you guys a little more full-time welders than me, put it in the old shit talker down at the bottom. Put it in the comments section. Give me some ideas. Maybe I'll hit you up. And always looking to learn new stuff, and hopefully you guys get a little something out of it too, other than the airplane flying over. But anyhow, cool deal, man. Well, we're gonna get this thing painted up, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Here's a little bit of time lapse like we talked about.